We're with Chris Claybon, sales manager at Bravas DFW in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Chris, thanks for joining us here at CE Pro.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So first, let's just talk a little bit about, for people who don't know about Bravas, I know that it's the roll-up of brands that was formed last year. What can you tell us about the Bravas DFW branch in terms of your solutions and services that you guys specialize in down there?
So of the Bravas locations, we are the city that combined the most. So we had three different smaller AV companies that came together to be the Bravas DFW branch. And that left us with the most varied product base. We had, three locations selling three different solutions and also doing three different kinds of jobs. So it's been a big challenge to become one giant custom AV provider down here.
Okay, so it was a bit to put together in terms of getting everyone kind of on board on the same page with the company's sales and marketing and just the whole technical process with every installation.
Absolutely. Just, having techs from three different places that are now installing solutions from three different places and just building SOPs and some sort of line card was enough of a challenge.
What about some of the jobs themselves in terms of, do you guys have kind of a sweet spot or a bread and butter market that you work in terms of residential and or light commercial offerings?
We do probably 90-10 residential to commercial, and our sweet spot for that resi is the larger custom jobs for custom builders. You're talking, if you're looking dollar amount, 50 to 75 and up.
Okay, and in terms of square footage, we're talking about some pretty large scale houses.
Yeah, and well, you get a lot of house for your money down here, so it sounds a lot bigger than it is everywhere else. But the 5,000 to 6,000 square feet and up becomes usually a custom house.
Right. Okay. Well, that can segue into what we wanted to talk about was every year the CE Pro 100, we poll the participating companies. Bravas is on the list this year, and every year we looked and asked them about the different brands that they use, sort of their top three brands that they can put in various categories kind of across the board. And one of those is for video extension products. So you have your HDMI scalers, extenders, distribution products. And so what we wanted to focus on was a company that did pretty well this year, especially compared to last year, AV Pro Edge. And we've called these bullet brands, companies that do pretty well in terms of going from one year to another in picking up more CE Pro 100 dealers. And you had mentioned to me before we started recording the call that AV Pro is a pretty new company to Bravas. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the reasons why your company uses AV Pro for reliable video distribution these days now?
Well, you nailed it when you said reliability. So one of the three companies that was coming in there had just started using AV Pro Edge, and one of the biggest reasons that they had gone that route was, almost all of our service calls, as you know, are from video distribution. It's really just taken a beating lately, and so they came in with some pretty high promises of being able to resolve that and to make different components work together. And so we gave them a shot on one of the companies, and then when the three merged and the other two were having the same issues, we said, let's make that our go-to if budget allows it. So that's kind of how we got the ball rolling with them. It's based on trouble in the past.
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of where their solutions fit into your offerings, is it part of kind of a good, better, best mix of video products, or is it just basically a couple brands that you present? Where would AV Pro Edge fit in as offerings, as options compared to another video option?
So yeah, originally we were trying to say, okay, let's make this our better and best. But as far as video distro, it is really becoming more and more rare. So, now it's really pretty much our only offering, that if you need the good or better, you're probably going local source. But if you actually want to do distribution, then that's the route we're going to push you. So it is segueing to becoming our sole provider of video distribution, because we didn't want to offer a lesser product at a lesser price point that was unreliable. Just
Okay.
that's a job for local sources, if you will. So
How would you describe some of your typical video projects in some of these larger houses?
you know, once we get into what is our bread and butter, it usually requires video distribution, because that's the way that we pre-wire, and also it starts to become an economy of scale for the customer. Local sources is great when you're under 5 or 6 displays, but after
Right.
that, and then now with some of the new control systems wanting to do scaling and multiple displays, now again, video distro is back in the point. So it pretty much is our go-to on anything that we get to wire from the ground up, because of simply the size, of the project.
Do the projects usually involve kind of a mix of video technologies out there that you have to make sure kind of all play nicely together when you're distributing the AV signals, between 4K, and I imagine obviously 8K will be coming down the pipe, but 1080p, 4K, whether you're going to OLED or LCD projection, flat panel, how much of that do you usually wind up mixing and matching on your video installs?
Yeah, so as much as we'd love to say that the typical AV customer, it's all new stuff, usually somebody who's spending that much on an AV project has something they're kind of partial to, right? They've got the projector they've had for 20 years that they spent 50 grand on and don't want to part with yet, or the last house they had was an 85-inch OLED, and they thought that was the biggest that they'd ever go. So we do get a lot of client provided stuff that you have to play nice with a newer, more capable display. And also with the, outdoor TVs, shop TVs, all these other ones, where people are just kind of passing down displays, you'll end up with a 720 display on a system that now is up for grabs on an 8K OLED. So it's pretty common, actually.
So in terms of the AV Pro Edge products that you go to as kind of the problem solvers, and wind up being kind of a glue to these video distribution systems for these large scale houses in particular, what are some of the typical solutions that you use from AV Pro Edge?
Obviously the video matrices, you're talking about the 8x8, the 16x16, and then the Balins, whenever we have to cover any sort of distance, even on our smaller projects, they just seem to be a little bit more reliable. So those are kind of our go-tos. We've moved into some audio extractors. We were using another brand there, and it's really just for consolidated purchasing. We haven't had problems with the extraction parts, but it's usually the matrix and the Balins that that's what we grabbed onto early.
Okay. And are there any other installation friendly features that you can point to from these products that are also something that might differentiate them from the competition, or just something that's enabled some easier installation and labor hours for your guys?
Yeah, sure. So we try to build and program and burn in all of our racks in house. And right before this call, I was talking to my programmer, and he thinks that they set up way faster. So in the couple that we have deployed in the last couple of weeks, which have had 3 different control systems on them, 3 different systems, he thinks that the setup is a little quicker. So there's some labor hours saved there. Of the ones we have deployed since we started really heavily into it the last quarter of last year, I don't know of any service issues. So there's your labor hour savings. And whenever it's video distro, there's where your real savings is not going back out to troubleshoot. So faster setup, and they've proven to be more reliable so far. So we're really happy on the projects we can squeeze them into budget-wise.
Right, pretty much any time that you can save a truck roll will be some of the savings there for the integrator and the clients, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
How about in terms of the learning curve with training on the products? What else have your technicians said in terms of just getting up to speed on them compared to other products that they were used to installing?
Yeah, so again, they've said faster setup. We've also been able to get a couple in house when we first adopted it to be able to do, which is always really cool, right? When you get them in house, you put it in the office, and guys get to work on it. Anybody willing to make that investment shows you that they stand behind it. So that was really big for us to get some hands on before that, and then the support. I think we did have a balun or an extender, however you want to call it, that we had an issue with, and it was just light years ahead of some of the other products out there that want to blame you for everything. You're ending up, hey, can you run a cable across the floor? And are you sure it's not stapled? And is it over at a 90-degree bend at any point in time? You're just like, oh my goodness, I just think the balun is bad or the extender is bad. Help me troubleshoot it. So the support has been fantastic from that aspect. And then again, a little bit quicker setup, and then being able to get the hands on before we deployed them was huge, because we all know
Yeah, I
the
was going to
panic at the
ask you in
tech
terms
fair.
of like sales and marketing support for your showroom, or like you said, installing it there so you guys know what they're getting into ahead of time before they're actually out in the field.
Yeah, so yeah, we were able to put our hands on it before and then bring it into the office. I believe that there's a couple sales guys that now have it in their own houses on some accommodations. I mean, that goes a long way. It really does. It helps people build a little confidence in it.
Great. And overall, anything else that you want to add about AV Pro Edge in terms of giving you that confidence to have your team members, confidently sell and install their products into your systems?
No, I mean, I guess the biggest thing is if they're this aggressive and they're consuming the top 100, is just make sure the support stays the same. A lot of these companies kind of outgrow their britches when it comes to that, and then they don't offer the support or the quality of product that they did when they started up, and then everybody starts the mass exodus off. So that, to maintain that trajectory, maintain the support, and I think they'll have no problems. And then just adopt upcoming trends. I think that's another thing. We don't know where video is going, and originally we thought it's all going to be decentralized, and now with scalers and things like that coming back, it may not be. So just making sure that they're staying ahead of it, and that 8K doesn't surprise anybody, and those kind of things.